Hello there, my name is Daniel and welcome to my tiny kitchen. This is episode 2 in my web series that I've started, basically going through all of my grandma's recipes and some of my own in there, and is again in honour for my grandma who I recently lost. So to get cracking with today's episode, I am doing Peppermint Praline, which is quite an easy-ish recipe, but I loved it as a kid. Peppermint is one of my favourite flavours. Now, I've never made this before, so I do have the recipe, which is quite simple in front of me. So if you see me looking that, especially in this web series, most of the time, a lot of the recipes that I'm doing, the first time that I'm actually making them will be in this video. So if there's a lot of like looking at the recipe, that explains that. I generally read the actual recipe beforehand, get all the ingredients and have an idea of how to do it, but I do have I do need that resource basically. But anyways, enough of that. We'll get cracking with the actual recipe. So step 1, basically start melting your butter. Melting that, get a pan, pop some water in it. Now I generally will pop some cold water in there first, and then boil the kettle and top it up with boiled water. Now I did start melting the chocolate before I started recording, because I know the chocolate can take a while to actually melt, so you can get cracking with the rest of your ingredient preparation as well. So for this actual, for the recipe, let's go through the ingredients. You need about 12 digestive biscuits, about 4 ounces, which equates to about 115 grams of butter, a tablespoon of golden syrup, or you can use honey, I guess, as well. You do also need a tablespoon of sugar, and that's for your base. So you can, which my grandma used to do, also add sultanas to this, but I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm not going to add sultanas into this. But if you were, you're also going to add half a cup of sultanas to the biscuit crumb when you make it. Now, the other thing you'll need is about 8 ounces, which would equate to about 230 grams of icing sugar, and about a teaspoon of peppermint essence. Now, if you want to flavour it with a different flavour, go right ahead. And then half a block of chocolate of your baking chocolate. You can use dark, milk, or white chocolate. Doesn't really matter, but I'm using dark chocolate for this recipe here. Now, when you get your chocolate melting, the other thing you also want to do is melt your butter down as well, which also has your sugar and your syrup combined. Now put that on a lower heat, just so you're not going to burn it, because the fun part, at least the part that I remember doing as a kid whenever I would help my grandma do this, is breaking up the biscuits. Now, traditionally we would use a bowl, which I got today, but quite in modern day, you would pop it in a Ziploc bag and crush it up in there. Now, I don't have a Ziploc bag big enough to fit all the biscuits, and I'm using a bowl today, so grab any blunt instrument that you can use to break them all up. I'm using my rolling pin, but basically you're just mashing all of your biscuits, your digestive biscuits, into a breadcrumb, basically, or into a crumb form. And make sure you get generally like this. In there, break them up to smaller components, because you'll want to make sure that it's going to all stick together when you mix your butter in with it. Now, take a photo at each step, include it in the progress to the next step, as to what to look like. And like before, I will include the ingredients. I'll include the ingredients and directions at the end of the, in the description as well. Okie dokie, so I have found, if you're unsure if you've got all of the bigger bits out, give your finger a shake. A lot of the finer biscuit dust will go to the bottom and reveal the larger chunks in your biscuit mix. Once you've done that, both sections of here are done. So I've got my chocolate melting on a lower heat. However, my sugar and butter mix basically is combined. So I'm mixing this in with my breadcrumbs. To form kind of like a biscuit crumb base. Now, once you've mixed the butter and everything in, if you were wanting to add the sultanas here, then you would. This would be the step that you would add them in. Now, once you've mixed all of the crumb through, you need to get a tray to basically line it in. Now, my grandma, in her handwritten recipe, she's recommended, have a Swiss roll tray. Now, I don't think I have one of them. I've yet to Google what a Swiss roll tray looks like to see if I do have one. So I've just grabbed a baking tray. Now again, I've lined it with baking paper so that once you've chilled it, it's going to be a lot easier for me to pull it out. So you are basically layering your biscuit crumb at the bottom of this. Don't think this tray is going to be big enough. Just give me 2 ticks while I swap it out. And one of the beauties about having baking paper, if you make a mistake and need to transfer it, you can do so quite easily. Just like that. So, similar to the recipe we did last episode with the Rice Krispie Crunches, you're wanting to basically compact and flatten the biscuit crumb down into the base, so it is going to stick all together. Okie dokie. Then after that step, make sure you check on your chocolate in between here, just to make sure that you're not going to burn it. You want to prep your kind of icing stage. With this one, with your 8 ounces of icing sugar, you want to make it, you don't want to make the icing too runny. So basically I'm grabbing a cup of water, and I'm I'm just adding the water slowly, just so I can get an idea of, you know, and can control the amount of icing, the actual water content and how runny the icing goes. So I don't have the exact amount for the water. I've never done this before. My grandma hasn't written it on her recipe. She's just put icing sugar. So you don't need a lot of water in there. If I'm guessing probably about 10 to 20 mils of water. Has it at least at a consistency which is easily spreadable. It's not too runny. You can easily place it on and maneuver it around the actual praline base, the biscuit base. Make sure as well you sift your icing sugar to avoid any lumps and bumps when you're mixing it. However, there's very, very little in a way of icing sugar clumping because it is really easy to get all those clumps out. But I guess I've had it previous before. So once you've got your mixture here, you pop it on top. So once you've got your icing, you want to, before I add it there, add half a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of your peppermint essence to your icing mix now. Handy hint for those who are doing it now, probably add that first to the mix, just on the off chance it's at that point where it's, you know, too late and your mixture's relatively runny, just to make sure. Now, generally, you know, give it a little bit of a try to see if it's pepperminty enough for you, because you want to be able to taste the actual peppermint. Which you can. So yeah, you need to add it to the base of your praline. So adding it to that, just dollop it all on, and then again use the back of your spoon or use a knife to maneuver it around to try and grab an even layer. Now, I'd probably actually recommend a knife because, like I said, not done this before, and some of the biscuit mix has come up. So I just want to make sure that I'm not going to do that to the rest of my cake with the back of a fork. Now, the good thing about this is that you basically, because it is a relative liquid, it will generally try and auto level itself and even out. So the next step is layering the chocolate on top. Now, I've never done this before, so again, apologies if it turns out bad. I learned from each and every one. My icing is kind of sat there a little bit to settle for about 1 to 2 minutes. Now, if you're taking your bowl, whatever it is, straight from the actual the pan, just be careful, it's going to be hot, you can burn your fingers. Now, I wonder if half a block of chocolate is going to be enough to cover something this big. Might be not. We'll see. Just spread it out again with my knife. Beauty about it is you've always got that extra half a block to add if need be, whereas if it's too much, you can't really do much about it post adding it and melting it down. So also when you're doing this, just make sure you get the chocolate right the way up to the edge of the actual, like the edge of the tray, edge of the praline biscuit. To cover basically the entire top. Now you may need to act quite fast or relatively fast when you're doing this, because obviously your chocolate is setting because it's being taken off the heat as it's doing this. So yeah, and obviously it will be easier in a swish roll tray, because the sides of the actual tray are going to be a lot smaller, so you can get in there than using this bulky tray that I have. However, unfortunately, I forgot to go and grab one of them before doing this one, thinking, oh yeah, I could use a regular baking tray. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. But anyways, once you have, once you've spread all your chocolate around on top of your actual slice, then I would most likely recommend chilling it in the fridge to allow everything to set and come together and basically join before slicing it up for serving, just to allow for ease of that. Now, the other thing obviously as well is that then when you actually are going to take the slices of your praline, the chocolate and the actual icing is not just going to then melt out the sides of that. So we'll chill this for a little while, and then I'll take it out and I'll slice it, and then I'll basically take a picture and show you what it looks like. So yeah, see you in a little bit. Hello, welcome back. So the peppermint praline has been in the fridge for about an hour now, and at least the chocolate on top has set from touching it. So take it out of its container. Like I said, baking paper makes a world of difference when you're doing this, and you just basically need to chop it into slices, depending on what thickness you're wanting for this one. I generally do thinner slices for this. My work colleagues, at least, are mostly women, and they really like to watch the amount that they eat. Yeah, you can do them in however thickness you would like, into slices, and then serve basically. Now, if you're in a country where it's quite warm, or if you're in a place that gets quite warm, or it's a hot day, just remember, A, the chocolate is going to melt, but also the icing in the middle, that can also get a little bit softer, and so it might be that it oozes out the side, especially when you start eating it. So yeah, basically just keep that in mind when you do serve it, and if it is going to be a hot day, try and keep it cool until you need to serve it. Otherwise, keep it in a container. So yeah, that's basically it. My grandma's peppermint praline. Hope you enjoy it, and thanks again for watching. Ta-ra! So melting chocolate, if you don't know, basically you're getting a pan and you're filling it to about halfway with water. Now you want to get a bowl that can sit on top of the actual pan without touching the water. You need that gap of air for the steam to basically hit the bottom of the bowl, and that basically is what helps melt the butter. Don't do what I first did, melting chocolate, and that was put the chocolate straight in the pan, because that does not work, even on a low heat. And the same with letting it touch the water. It takes so long for it to actually melt if you if you allow that bowl to touch the water. You need that gap to allow the actual steam of the boiling water to melt it. Yeah, how you melt chocolate. The other way, obviously, of melting chocolate is you melting it in a microwave. Now, I don't actually own a microwave, shock horror. It's something that, to be honest, I can't believe I couldn't live without, but I am. So yes, you can use the microwave. There's no issue using the microwave. Just unfortunately, I've got to do it relatively old-fashioned, because I don't have the snazzy technology of a microwave to melt anything down. So mine's all stove tops. My grandma used to do this until she got a microwave, and then, yeah.